Aloha judges, this is the orientation for those who are judging for the State Fair for Hawaii History Day Spring 2022. My name is Cynthia Smith, and I am one of the several historian consultants that help judges throughout the judging process. I will be the lead coordinator for the State Fair, so I'll be your point person. You'll get all the emails from me. I'm the one that you write to when you have concerns, issues, or need some advice. Now, this orientation is building on orientations that we did earlier in the spring. In February and March, we ran 7 district fairs, as well as a Aloha Hawaiʻi category. And we had orientations done on Zoom in February and March. We taped one of those sessions, the one conducted by Leanna Horowitz from Maui College, one of the historian consultants. And that's the bulk of what you'll be watching on this tape, where Leanna goes over judge duties, the theme, understanding the theme for this year, judging criteria, etc. But I'm going to start by prefacing with some of the specific information related to the State Fair that's different from some of the district information that we gave out in February and March. What you will be looking at as judges for this State Fair is you are looking at the best of all of these district fairs. The top 3 that were produced, that were ranked by the judges in February and March, the top 3 in every division and the top 3 in every category. And they all are now being viewed at the state level. And your critical job is to give all of these students feedback on the judge comments, but you are also choosing the best. You're choosing the top winners, the top 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place winners for state, and you're helping to determine who is then eligible to represent Hawaii at the National History Day Fair, which takes place in June. So you're looking at the best of the state, and you are picking those who are the best of the best to then go on and represent the state at the national contest. But again, most importantly, you're giving valuable feedback and teaching advice to all of the students whose projects you are looking at. Now, the way that this is particularly important for those who did not judge district and maybe judged history days in past years when we did it face-to-face. The way we've been running the last 3 years, virtual fairs, is that everything is done via the National History Day portal. So one of the key things you'll have to do is register for this History Day portal. You will be sent email information. There's also a videotape at the end of this orientation that shows you how to register. We are asking that every judge register anew, even if you registered for district, that you register specifically for the State Fair. And then that gives you access to this portal. And as Leanna will explain later, everything is done via the portal. Students' projects are posted up there. That's where how you can access them. This is where you're going to input your judge comments. And this is then how the teachers and students will access your judge sheets. So you will be working through this National History Day portal. And we do ask you to register for that, come up with your own password. You can use your email as your username, and you will get emails with more information on how to do that. The timeline for the State Fair is this. We're still gathering volunteers and judges and compiling our list of judges for the State Fair. Once we have that list finalized, we will then determine which category and division you will be judging. So I will let you know that no later than April 2nd. Right? By Saturday, April 2nd, I'll send out kind of the judge assignment sheet based on the preferences that you indicated when you signed up to judge. The History Day, the Hawaii Council for the Humanities gets all of the student projects by April 1st. That's a deadline for students to submit their projects. Then HCH folks work very hard, very rapidly to post up all of those projects into the various judge portal rooms and to make sure that these projects are complete, that there's not any access problem. Once that is done, I will then contact each team, each judge team specifically to say, your projects are available. They are ready to be judged. Our opening day of judging is April 4th, which is the Monday. Ideally, we might have them available maybe a day or so earlier. But when they're ready to be viewed, I will email you. It will be no later than April 4th. So judging starts April 4th. You have from April 4th to April 14th to do your judging. And as Leanna will explain, that entails you looking at the projects and starting, filling out your judge comment sheets, but also conferring with your fellow judge. Every team will have 2 judges. So you're conferring with your fellow judge team member to determine the ranking. That's what we need by April 14th. By April 14th, you need to have decided the best 3 that are moving from state to national, or if it's a category where there's multiple projects and we have 2 or 3 judge teams looking at all of those, let's say junior displays, then you will be asked to choose for runoffs. And I will let you know when I email you saying it's ready to start. I'll let you know if you need to submit 3 names, 3 projects for runoffs, or if you are choosing the state winners. Regardless, we need your rankings by April 14th. Then we're going to be having the runoffs. So in those areas, again, these big sprawling categories where there's numerous projects, the runoffs will take place between April 18th and April 20th. So some of you did volunteer to also be a runoff judge. We still need more runoff judges. So if you are interested, certainly email me. For the runoffs, they take, again, there's 3 days to do that. The runoff judges, be very clear, do not write judge comment sheets. All those runoff judges are doing is looking at the ones put forward from the preliminary round and choosing the best 3 for state. So you don't have to do additional judge sheets if you are a runoff judge. So we should know by the 20th then all of the finalists for coming out of state, the best of the state. Then you still have more time to continue to work on your judge sheets. Your rankings due April 14th, but the judge sheets themselves are not due until April 22nd. So you have lots of time to give thoughtful and valuable feedback to the students. And Leanna will talk more about what that feedback should look like, what the judge sheets look like later in this orientation. The virtual announcement award ceremony, which has been very lovely the last 2 years, where it's all done online on Zoom with students and teachers from all over the state participating. That will take place on Saturday, April 23rd from 9 to 11. So mark your calendars because it's a very renewing and exciting thing to watch that virtual ceremony. So those are the specifics about how the state will be run as different from the district fairs earlier this spring. For the rest of the orientation information, please stay tuned. And we'll now move this on to the taped orientation from earlier this semester presented by Leanna Horovitz. Thank you very much for your service in judging for the State History Day Fair. It is such an important culmination of the hard work for students and teachers, months of hard work. And we appreciate you volunteering your time and your expertise.
Thank you. Thanks for judging. We could not do this without you. I'm Leanna Horovitz. I teach history at UH Maui College. I'm one of the many consultants who works on the History Day Fair, but it's really the Hawaii Council for the Humanities folks who make it all possible. We'll be going over some key points today. Some of you have judged before, some for many years, some are very new. And for all of us, there's some new processes in doing this virtually. Usually orientation is on Saturday morning of the fair, but now it's being done prior to judging. Please be sure to check out the materials and resources that are posted up on the Hawaiʻi History Day Judge webpage. This includes videos covering different aspects of the judging. Some points covered refer to in-person fairs, but most of the information is very relevant, and this today will help provide some updates to that. So I'm going to just sort of lead us through this slideshow of information to kind of go over what History Day is, the processes, and your roles and responsibilities as judges. So we've got about an hour, and feel free to use the chat room and ask questions as we're going. And Cynthia and Dory and Shannon will jump in and chime in if there's other things to cover that I somehow miss. So Cynthia has just put in the chat room a link to our judges' resources on the Hawaii Council for the Humanities website. So that's a great place to go. All right, we're going to start with an introductory video, which includes some of the amended and updated information for our virtual fairs. So this was filmed pre-COVID, so some of the statements about how the fairs work are updated at the end of the video.
Hello, Welcome. This is the orientation video for those who will be judging for Hawaii State History Day fairs. My name is Cynthia Smith, and I am one of the historian consultants and one of the judge coordinators. The purpose of this video is to go over the expectations and the duties of the judges so that you have a little bit of a preview before you come on the day of the fair. All of the information I'm going to be talking about, we will again go over on the orientation that takes place prior to the fair, but this gives you a chance to think ahead, plan ahead, and come in knowing what is expected of you as a judge. Little background about Hawaiʻi History Day. This is a project that began in the early 1990s. It is a major project of the Hawaii Council for the Humanities. They have been for almost 30 years helping support teachers and students across the state to prepare for History Day fairs. That support has included numerous workshops, a lot of resources posted on the web, and getting historians into the classroom to help consult with teachers and with students. The idea of the Hawaiʻi History Day Fair is to conduct fairs that give students a chance to show the work that they've been doing throughout the year and to select those who are going to represent us at the National History Day Fair. You are judging either a district fair or a state fair, so let me explain the process. In essence, students begin working on their History Day projects in the early fall. They then present their projects often at school fairs, where they pick those who are going to represent the schools. From the school fairs, the best go to the district fairs, and the winners at the district fairs then go to the state fair in April. Those who win or qualify at the state fair, then HCH sends on to the national fair in Maryland. All of this involves a tremendous amount of work and logistical effort by Hawaii Council for the Humanities. And again, this is really a pet project of that institution. Now, on the days of the fairs, your job is a crucial job. There's a lot of work that goes into these History Day projects by the students, by the teachers, by their families, by Hawaii Council for the Humanities, but the critical person is you as the judge, because you are the person that is looking at giving feedback and evaluating those projects. You're the person the students have been thinking about all year. What will the judge be looking for? So your job is essential, and we want to make sure that you feel well prepared for doing that job. On the day of the fair, there's basically going to be 5 formats that will be judged, that will be evaluated, and the winners will be announced. Those 5 formats are, first of all, essay, which everyone should be familiar with, a traditional essay. We also have a relatively new format, which is websites. That is a very popular one with students. For essays and websites, this is how students present their historical research, present their historical arguments. For both essays and websites, if you are chosen, if you volunteer to do essays and webs, you will be judging before the fair starts, because that takes a long time to look at these essays and webs. So you will come on the day of the fair to interview the students, but your judging takes place prior to the fair. If you are doing essay and website judging, you will receive those about a week and a half or 2 weeks prior to the fair, and then do your evaluations, your ranking prior to that fair. For the rest of you, you're judging on the day of the fair. Students are going to bring their projects. You're going to see what they have on that day. The other 3 formats are displays, and that's where students use poster boards to tell an historical story through limited text and pictures and graphs. It's like a museum exhibit. There's also media. That's very popular with students. In the days when we first started History Day, media was slideshows. These days it is very slick DVD productions, and students really enjoy communicating in that manner. So we have what's called documentary, which is basically DVD presentations. Those are 10 minutes, so 10-minute max of a documentary presentation. The final format for the very brave students is performance, where they convey an historical story and argument through a live performance. That is also a 10-minute presentation. So those are the 5 formats. You will be judging in one of those formats, and you're going to be judging one of 3 divisions. It's very important to understand what these divisions are, what the age of these students are, so that you understand how young they are, that you're looking at the work of very young people in some cases. Some of you, in a few districts, we have what's called the youth division, where they're having students in 4th and 5th grade already doing primary material, presenting, sometimes even doing live performance in front of people. So 4th and 5th graders are the youth division. Not every district does youth division, but those that do, it is a great treat to work with these young students.
Then there's junior division. That's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Junior division will be in all districts. And then finally, senior division. That's 9th through 12th grade. So be aware as you get your judge assignments, the ages that you're looking at. For many of you, like the displays and the essays, you don't meet the students until you've done your judging. So it's important to keep in mind the age, the youth of these students, and to couch everything that you convey to them in very, very gentle terms, very constructive and helpful terms.
Hello, this is some updated information, an addendum to the orientation tape that you just finished viewing, based on the changes that we're making in 2022 for our district and state fairs. And this is all, of course, because of COVID. We are going to be running all of the district fairs and the state History Day fair in a virtual format. So I just wanted to explain a little bit how that will differ from how we've run History Day in previous years. In the past, pre-COVID, we ran district fairs separately. So each Saturday we'd have maybe 1 or 2 district fairs taking place at different campuses across the islands. Judges would go to one of those fairs, judge all of the projects from that particular district, Leeward District, Windward, Maui, etc. And that would run from mid-February to about mid-March, usually 4 to 5 weeks of Saturdays where we'd run district fairs. What we're going to be doing now is having just one judging period in which judges will be judging virtually, electronic submissions of students' work. There is no in-person judging, so you can ignore all of that from the orientation tape. And that is all going to be run parallel, concurrently. So we will start the judging for all of the districts on February 22nd. And then judges will do their initial judging, either choosing for state or selecting for runoffs. We'll then have the runoff judging taking place concurrently for different districts, and all of that will be done March 11th. So the judging for all districts starts February 22nd and results are announced on March 11th. So the structure of the judging is going to remain the same in that students are still going to basically be competing, being judged with those from their district. So we maintain the differentiation between districts, Leeward District students, Honolulu District, Maui, Kauai. They're not going to be blended together. And you as a judge are only going to be judging one district. So you'll be judging the Leeward displays, and they're not going to be mixed up with central displays. So we will have different coordinators that will be contacting the judges for different districts. And you will be judging, as you would have in a pre-COVID year, you will be judging those projects from a particular school district. Now, some of you may want to judge more than one district fair. That would be wonderful. It's a lot of work during that time period. However, we only recommend people volunteering to do maybe 2 fairs if you are a really experienced judge. You shouldn't do it as your first time. If this is your first time judging, really stick with one district. So you will pick a district and you'll have a coordinator that works with you to let you know deadlines and what you're judging and be there for troubleshooting. And you will be judging your district from February 22nd and be done by March 11th. Now, the State History Day Fair is also going to be done, virtually, and the time frame there is from April 4th until April 22nd. So if you're thinking about signing up for state, that is the time period we will be asking you to judge. One important addition also to the introductory information is to let you know that we will be using the National History Day portal. The way that we run a virtual fair, the way that we've done it for the last 2 years as we've needed to, is to use that National History Day portal in which we use that portal for you to access the student projects. That's where student projects will be posted, whether it's in the form of an essay document, a link to a YouTube video for the documentary, a taped performance, etc. So you'll be using that portal to access whatever projects you're viewing. That is also the place where you can confer with your fellow judge. They have a little video conferencing component. You can also do it as a Zoom or FaceTime or set up an alternative way, but you can use the portal to confer and interact with your fellow judge. And that is where you're going to submit your judge sheets. So the National History Day portal is the way that we get the projects to you, and it is where you submit all of your judge comments, where you indicate your ranking. That is the venue through which we can conduct fairs. 8 district fairs at the same time with people spread throughout the islands is using that portal. So there is a later orientation tape that specifically talks you through how to register, how to use that portal. But I just wanted to finish this kind of addendum to our introduction by making clear how the fair will actually function, how you will interact in terms of the projects and with your fellow judge. So that's it for the addendum to this portion of the orientation.
Thanks, Cynthia. I'd like to talk about themes, because every year there is a theme for History Day, and this year's theme is debate and diplomacy, success and failures, consequences in history. Now, the theme is broad enough to encompass specific topics or a variety of classes, such as American history, world history, Hawaiian history. So students can be creative in the topics that they choose, but they do need to make clear their link to the theme. And every year, in honor of the theme, we choose a person to honor. And our 2022 Hawaiʻi History Day honoree is Prince Jonah Kuhio Kalanaʻaniʻole, who represented Hawaii in the United States Congress during one of the most tumultuous eras in Hawaii's history. In the decades following the overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom and the annexation of the islands by the United States, Prince Kuhio was an advocate for Kanaka Maoli rights, both here in the islands and on the US continent, including championing the controversial Hawaiian Homelands Commission Act. He helped found Hawaiian civics clubs, and in 1885, he and his brothers introduced surfing to Santa Cruz, California. So we are really happy to help bring his story to the world through History Day. So talking about the virtual fair logistics, as Cynthia said, all districts are being judged at the same time, although you as a judge are only judging projects from one district and one specific category and one age division, but it will all be happening concurrently across the state at the same time. So there are different judge coordinators for each fair, and they will have been in contact, and these are the people that you should ask questions of. We're in the process of assigning the judges and the projects and finalizing the project counts as students register through February 18th. So we will not know the final counts until just before judging starts on the 22nd. And at that time, your fair coordinator will let you know what format and division you are judging. And depending on how many projects come into your division, there is the possibility you will be shifted to judge another fair. So for example, if Maui has a very small amount of projects, but Central Oahu has a large amount, we might ask you to shift over to that district just so that we can spread out the work for everyone. So you can register now in the National History Day portal. You will have to be registered there before you can access your projects to judge. So the portal will remain empty until the projects are released on February 22nd at 5 p.m. So it might be a little bit earlier for some of you, depending on the category and whether all of the students get their projects submitted on time. And so your fair coordinator will let you know when it's ready to be looked at. Unfortunately, there are no interviews this year, so your written comments are all the more important because that's the only feedback the students are going to be getting from their judges. And so it's really important not to be too harsh, to be encouraging, to provide gently worded, constructive criticisms. And as Cynthia Smith is so fond of saying and importantly reminds us, no tears on History Day. So when we talk about duties, these are your tasks. The first thing is to access your project via the judges portal on the National History Day site. Look over the projects. All are posted as either PDFs or links to videos on the portal. And then be sure to have looked over the projects and maybe make yourself some initial comments and some notes prior to meeting with your judging team. You will confer with your co-judges, but it's important that you've had a chance to look at everything before you actually get together as a group. And again, you can use Zoom, you can use the National History Day portal link, phone, any medium which is comfortable for your entire team. And then once you've conferred with your judges and have discussed all of the projects together, then you will rank them. So it's really important that you all have a conversation, that you don't just do it by email, because so much can be missed in email conversations alone. So find the way that's most comfortable for you and your team to have a good conversation about these projects, and determine which ones will go on to state. So you'll be ranking all of the projects, but it's really the top 3 that are going on to state. So there's no need to sort of kind of nitpick about who gets 7th place or 8th place. That's not as important as just the top 3 that are going to go on to state. Let's see, again, for runoff judging, you're not commenting, you're just ranking, but we need to rank all of the projects to submit them in the portal. So that's the reason for ranking them all beyond the top 3. Let's see, what else? Providing feedback. Again, it's so important to, this is the most critical part of the whole task, really, because the teachers and the students learn from this. This is really a teaching moment. You should fill out the entire rubric that is provided for you, but judges will each individually fill out their own rubric and comments. And again, the comments should be gentle, and because there are no interviews, again, this is the only feedback that students will get from you. But the comments themselves, while you've met with your judging team to rank the projects, it is not a team comment back to the students. Each individual judge should write their own comments for that. So the lead judge will be assigned by your fair coordinator, and the duties are to contact your teammates early to select a target date for the discussion of the projects, and to schedule a meeting to confer via Zoom or the video conferencing or by phone to talk about the projects, and to ensure that the team stays on track and avoids last-minute judging and meetings. So really try to plan this early. And then the lead judge will input the final ranking decisions and the special prize nominations into the National History Day portal. Next slide, Devin. So here are just some additional tips. Type out your comments in Word first or another word processing document. Do not reference the student's school name, even if they share that. We're not supposed to know it. Do not indicate personal follow-up or give email. Even if you have a specialty in the topic of the project that you've looked at, all communication must go through HCH and the teachers. So there's no direct communication with the students. They shouldn't necessarily know who you are as a judge, and you shouldn't indicate that you know which school they're from. So don't wait till the last minute. Try to get an early start on planning out that week of judging. Want to spend a little bit of time talking about judging criteria and what you should be looking for as a judge. We have a short video to help with this. And again, recognize that in this video, there's a few things that are different due to the virtual processes. And because National History Day has created a new judging sheet. So veteran judges, this will be a little bit different for you as well. Some key changes from past years is the rubric form. The criteria is more explicit and will give very specific and valuable feedback. So we'll go ahead and take a look at this video.
Hello, for this segment of the orientation, we're going to be talking about judging criteria. So what is it that you're actually looking for in these projects as you do the ranking, and particularly as you give the feedback that students and teachers will later receive about where they were strong and where they can improve. National History Day has created kind of a brand new revised judge sheet. There have been some revisions over the past few years that have greatly improved the judge sheet. These sheets you can first of all look over now by looking at the resources page on Hawaii Council for the Humanities for judges. They're all posted up there. But when you get your projects, when they're released on the portal, you have a judge sheet for each project. It's already right there that you'll just fill in. Now, I'm going to go over these criteria very quickly. It is weighted now differently than it's been in the past. Now this judge sheet, first of all, is in the form of a rubric, which is wonderful. There's very, very clear criteria that you are looking at as you evaluate, as you provide feedback, broken down into 80% about the historical content, and 20% the presentation. So clarity of presentation or quality, communication skills. But mostly what you're looking at is the historical work that they've done, the historical merits. Now, starting with that, what you're looking at as you evaluate the historical work that they've done, first and foremost is research. A bibliography is part of every project that you look at. When I judge, that's the first thing I look at is the research that they've done. The criteria that they're supposed to apply and abide by is, first of all, and what you're evaluating, wide-ranging research. So not just one or two sources that they depend on entirely, but they've done a lot of research and used that research in their argumentation, and substantive research, right? Not superficial and weak secondary sources, but substantive wide-ranging research. A lot of that is the mark of a stellar project. Secondly, that they've done primary research. It is an expectation in History Day project that they have done primary research. The more the better. Most importantly, that it's not just listed there in the bibliography, but that you see the evidence of that primary research in the project itself, that's integrated. Specifically, it states that it helps to support the historical argument. So finding and using good secondary sources and primary sources is the starting point for your evaluation. Then you turn to the area of historical argumentation. This is a really big one, a big leap intellectually for students. This is where you absolutely can see the better project versus the ones that need a lot more work, the ones that are going on to state versus the ones that are not, is where students move beyond narrative, telling the story, and we find many projects where that's where they're focused, telling the story, to the next step of analyzing that story, analysis, saying something about it, coming to clear conclusions, a well-proven thesis, a strong conclusion, where they make comparisons, where they talk about causes and effects, etc. Now, narration is an important skill, and if students do a really good job telling the story accurately and a good story, commend them on that. But the better projects is where they move beyond that to saying something about that story, coming to conclusions. So there's a number of criteria related to historical analysis. There is historical argument, having a thesis or a claim that is supported with analysis and evidence. It's not just enough to assert things, you've got to prove it. So historical argument is an important criteria. Significance in history is another important criteria related to this idea of analysis. That, you know, the so what about that topic, and certainly that is reiterated and emphasized and underlined in their conclusion, the significance of that topic in history, and also, of course, historical accuracy. That's a basic expectation, but an important one, that in making their argument, they're historically accurate. There are other elements of historical argumentation that are the more nuanced aspects of doing really good history. That is a historical context, that they place the topic that they've chosen in the larger context, that they show an understanding of time and place, why this event even took place, how it affected people. For example, if they're doing women's suffrage, you can't just start the project talking about Seneca Falls Convention. Like, why are these women there? What's going on? What's the status and lack of rights that women have that they're then pushing for? You have to talk about the status of women before you can talk about the movement of women's suffrage and women's rights in a broader context. So some understanding, showing that understanding, explaining that to the audience, the reader, of that historical context. Also, multiple perspectives. This we used to call balanced history. Now they have this terminology, and these criteria of varied perspectives are included throughout the project. They're not just talking about one side. of any debate or topic, or just one group that was impacted, or just the good stuff that happened. That there's an understanding, they show an understanding. There's more than one way to look at an event. There was more than one group of people whose agendas were in operation. There was more than one outcome. There was good and bad. There was short-term, long-term. So multiple perspectives, at least showing an understanding that and attempting to convey those different perspectives, at least more than one. Now they've got limits in time, right? For performance or video, they have limits in words for the other formats. So we don't expect them to do a doctoral thesis on multiple perspectives, but they need to show an understanding, and the really good projects are succinctly able to do that. So those are all of the elements of historical analysis and approach that you are evaluating. You're also evaluating their adherence to the theme. Every year there's a broad-based theme that they link their topics to. They can be very creative in how their topic links to that broader theme: communication history, conflict and compromise in history, technology and science. There's different themes. How they connect that, they can be as creative as they want, but they have to make the link clear. You should not have to work at it to figure out how this connects to the theme. You are evaluating that link to the theme. What you are not evaluating is if you like the topic, right? This is really important. Your prejudices or passions, your personal area of interest, what you would prefer to see them say in their argumentation or conclusion you want them to make, none of that enters into the judging. You are judging based on what they have presented and these criteria. We don't want to see people kind of saying, well, it's local history, so I'm going to weigh that better, weigh that higher. Certainly we all love to see when students do local history, but that's not in the criteria. They may have been told by their teacher what topics, range of topics they need to choose. They may be passionately interested in something that happened in Africa or Europe or the ancient past. We need to let them do the project that they want to do and not impose our preferences and our prejudices on how they approach it, the conclusions that they draw, if it is supported, and the area or time period that they're addressing. So those are all of the areas that relate to historical approach. Then you are also looking at clarity of presentation for, again, 20% of your evaluation. Those are very straightforward and self-explanatory in the criteria. They have to do with written communication skills, technological prowess and usage. There's also a criteria there under clarity of student voice. And what that means is that what's coming through, what's clearly presented, is their voice, right? That this is not just a project where they cut and pasted, quoted a whole bunch of secondary sources and threaded it together, but did you actually see their working through it? You hear their voice somewhere in there of their analysis, their own words, that it's not just too dependent on everybody else's conclusions, and that becomes part of that clarity evaluation. Finally, there are rules associated with each format. Those are listed on each format's judge page, exhibit, performance, etc. Those are very self-explanatory. You would tick off those various boxes. Yes, you met that rule. No, you did not meet that rule. You do not disqualify if they violate rules, but it is weighed in your judging. And we'll talk more about that in the orientation itself. And you can talk to your judge coordinator if you have questions. You do not disqualify for anything except plagiarism. Just say they're out of the running. But if they've just broken a couple rules, but it's still just by far the better project, you can weigh that ranking and how much you take into account the breaking of that rule. So what we ask you to do is convey how well they did on that criteria, both through checking the rubric boxes. That's very important. But most important is that you give substantive comments. Take some time to provide written comments that both commend what they did well and tell them where they can strengthen their work and their historical approach, but do it as gently and kindly as possible. These students are getting kind of anonymous comments sent back to them from a judge they didn't even get a chance to meet. We do not want it to be a crushing, harsh, punitive experience. We want them to feel commended for what they did well, and where you do point out how they could strengthen, we want them to learn from it, not be crushed by it. So take some time and really give that feedback as gently and constructively as you can related to these criteria.
All right, so just to sort of reiterate some main points there, as a judge, you are filling out not just the rubric, but you are also providing developed comments. And again, this is critical since they have no interview with you and they will otherwise not know you. This is their only contact and feedback. Your comments will all go into one text box now, so that's different from last year, and it's a 500 character minimum. The comments should be concrete and specific, as detailed as possible. Be sure to identify some strengths, commend them on something that they did well. So start with a positive, right? And then the areas for improvement and constructive suggestions. So be gentle. Really important is not to tell them how they did in the comments. Do not say you're our first choice for states, right? You know, don't give them that feedback. And please do not tell them if you nominated them for a prize. So not that kind of feedback, but just specific to the work that they submitted. And just as a reminder, these are students and teachers struggling to do History Day in really difficult circumstances. These are students who are doing work that many of their peers are not even attempting. So please encourage and guide. Don't crush or criticize or belittle or lecture or even show off what we know as adults. Be the teacher and make all the effort to lead to a sense of accomplishment, because we want them to come back and we want them to try again. We want them to get excited about the process of doing research and doing history, and that it's not just about first place, second place, or third place ranking, but that it's a fun process to go through, and they should feel that that feedback helps them to get there. So there are specific rules for each category once you are assigned a format, and you can look these over in more detail once you know your exact format. The papers, the essays are between 1,500 to 2,500 words. Captions and words in the footnotes count towards the total word count. Performances and documentaries are 10 minutes. Your websites have a 1,200 word limit, which does not include primary source quotes. So that's an important thing to note. The exhibits should be 500 words, and that does include the titles, subtitles, timelines, etc. The quotes and the source credits do not count. For websites, the multimedia that might be embedded in the website is limited to 3 minutes. There are no hyperlinks to outside websites. It should all be embedded into that one project. The annotated bibliography should be 2 to 3 sentences which answer the questions: how did you use the source? How the source helps you to understand your topic. All categories must include a process paper, but the process paper is not part of judging the content. So you can look through that fast, but do note, you know, if the students in their process paper really dive into what their thesis and their argument is, but that thesis or argument does not make it into the actual project, it doesn't count towards them in the actual project that's being graded. But you should look to make sure that that the process paper is included. All right, the next slide there. So rules violations. So every format has specific rules as indicated on the judge's sheet. And the rules violations could result in a lower ranking, but not necessarily a disqualification. The only things that would lead to a disqualification are plagiarism, or maybe reusing an old project. Maybe this is the students, you know, second or third time around doing History Day, and they submit sort of an older project. That's not allowed. things like missing bibliography, a missing process paper, a missing title page, or if they're over the word limit or over the time limit, those could impact the rankings, but it's not going to disqualify the project. So this is something you get to discuss as judges, and you can always confer with your fair coordinator. So don't be too punitive for small oversights. Think about issues of equity and fairness, the time and the word limit. So if somebody's gone 1,000 words over the project limit, well, that's not fair, because it's given them more time to explain their argument that somebody who perhaps has met that 500 word limit. So that's where equity and fairness comes into play as you decide rankings there. I think we could go to the next slide. All right, so let's talk about using this judges portal. So projects are posted in the National History Day portal. This is also where you will post your comments, and you do need to register for the fair that you're assigned to. So we have a short video here on how to log on and what to expect.
Thank you for judging for our Hawaiʻi History Day fairs. This video will guide you step by step through the registration process. To start your registration, click the link your consultant sent you. When the window opens, look for Judge Main. You will be creating a new account. Fill out the required information and press Create Account. At the next window, choose Judge and fill out all the information required. Press Save and Continue. 2 more windows appear, one asking for your preferences and the other permissions and waivers. Click on what is required and press Continue. At this point, you are done. Write down your username and password and wait for your consultant to let you know when your portal is ready for judging. Log in again, using your username and password. At the next window, look for the word Judging and go to Judge Portal. The team emails and phone numbers are listed at the top. The small box at the top is a video conferencing link that could possibly be used when meeting with your team. Click on View and Evaluate button to view and evaluate each project. The project link will be located in the upper left-hand corner. After reviewing the project, click on each bubble that best represents the criteria achieved. Select the rules compliance. Fill out the comment section. A minimum of 500 characters are required, but there is no maximum. The personal notes section can only be seen by you and your teammates. Save your comments or use the Save and Submit button when you are completely finished with each student evaluation. Pressing Save and Submit allows your teammates to see what you have written. You can continue to make changes, especially after your team has met together. The team captain or lead judge has added responsibilities. He or she needs to submit the ranking, add special awards, and lock the room by pressing the button Submitting to NHD. Once the room is locked, teammates cannot go back in and make changes. If the Submit to NHD button was pressed by accident, please contact your consultant and we can get your room reopened. We appreciate all you do to help our Hawaiʻi students succeed.
And the final task that we want to go over is the Judge Cost Share Survey. And once you finish judging History Day, you will be sent an email asking you to fill out a cost share form, which is vital for HCH to receive grant money to continue offering History Day events and support. So please make sure to indicate all the time that you committed. Don't shortchange yourself. We wish we could pay you monetarily for your time, but this helps us to, again, apply for grants. So your time should include the reading over judging materials, attending this orientation, and all the steps that you completed and time committed to participating as a judge. So thank you again. We really could not do this without your help and support, and we really appreciate you. That is the end of our presentation, and we will be here for questions and answers.